This is Heinrich from the Geeks, Gadgets, and Guns podcast. You're listening to one of the shows on the Self-Defense Radio Network. You can find all the other shows at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, a man for whom getting stuck in traffic was the only thing worse than sticking around for day one of nationals, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear. All too often, gun owners and gun culture are portrayed in the worst possible ways in the media. This podcast aims to counter that narrative by shining a light on the members of gun culture who are involved in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. Now, while IDPA members make up just a tiny fraction of the overall gun-owning public, I think they're a representative cross-section of that demographic. From all walks of life, rich, poor, and in between, young and old, men and women, patriotic, caring, friendly, and outgoing. And this podcast is about them. Today, you're going to meet one of these awesome people. But first, I want to thank our good friends, G4G Guns. After surviving an attempted kidnapping and having co-workers robbed at gunpoint, Patrick and Cassie Coburn decided to get a gun for protection, and that led them to teach others about the need to protect themselves and to be proficient with firearms, and that led to the creation of G4G Guns. It's an amazing store and an even more amazing website where you can shop for any gun, ammunition, accessories from the comfort of your own home and buy without any gimmicks or credit card fees. If you want the personal touch, visit their store at 175 Bear Road in Van Alstyne, Texas, or stop by and see them at a gun show near you on the weekends. They're great people. They offer great service, great prices, an amazing selection, and no hidden fees or gimmicks. Check them out at g4gguns.com. That's G, the number 4, gguns.com. G4G Guns, the galaxy for great guns. g4gguns.com. Our special guest today is Sean Griffith from Brunswick, Georgia. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lloyd. Thanks for having me.
Well, tell us a little about yourself. You're currently living in Brunswick, but you're there by way of Maryland. Tell us a little about what you do for a living in Brunswick and how you ended up there from your home state.
Yeah, sure. Originally from Maryland. I moved down here about a year ago. I teach firearms down here in Brunswick for the DHS. So following a job brought me down here.
Gotcha. So where did, growing up in Maryland, where did the interest in guns come from? Not exactly a gun-friendly state, but I imagine things might have been different when you were growing up, or did you develop the interest in guns later in life?
No, I'm from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, which is actually pretty rural.
Okay.
When people hear Maryland, they think the Baltimore, D.C. area, but if you go out to Western Maryland and then the Eastern Shore where I'm from, it's very rural. So I grew up, when I was 10 years old, my dad would hand me a Ruger 22 and a brick of 22s and tell me to go outside and shoot stuff. So, I grew up from a young age shooting guns. So, and then really started out, I joined the Marine Corps out of high school. That's really where it started to pick up.
Very cool. How long did you serve?
I did 4 years in the Marines. So,
well, thank you for your service.
No problem.
Do appreciate it. Where did the interest in competitive shooting come from? How did you get interested in shooting competitively?
I always liked shooting. Then the Marine Corps kind of furthered that interest. And then when I got out of the Marine Corps, I got a job with the police department in Maryland. And from there, I came down to Brunswick for training and learned the thumbs forward grip, which was an eye opener for me because the Marine Corps doesn't teach too much about handguns. It's all rifle.
Right.
But once I did that, working for the police force, talking to people, watching a lot of YouTube videos of dudes like JJ Rakaza and Ben Stoger just shredding stages. And I said, I want to do that. So I started kind of looking into competitive shooting and watching these guys and kind of went from there. I ended up Googling competitive shooting near my zip code in Maryland.
Right.
First club that came up was Bridgeville IDPA. So I just drove over there one day with my Glock 17 and said, "Hey guys, I'm here to shoot." And they were real good about, showing me the ropes, a new shooter. And I shot there pretty consistently ever since until moving down here.
So you were always the rifle guy. What was the interest in? Well, and then you were in law enforcement. So then you got your hands on a handgun. What was the first one you got for yourself?
After I deployed to Afghanistan in 2010, came home, and while I was on leave from that deployment, I bought a Glock 21. Was the very first handgun.
Ooh, big bore.
Yeah, I was a 45 guy until I found the light of 9mm for me. It'll probably be a controversial statement.
Just don't start comparing Glock to 1911s. We'll be okay.
I didn't say it. You did.
And so tell us a little about that first experience driving up to your first local IDPA match, never having experienced the sport personally, not knowing what you were getting into or anybody that was there at the range. What was that experience like?
It was kind of nerve-wracking. I showed up there and, obviously I had some training, so I'm comfortable around guns. So I remember standing there with I had bought a vest because I knew you needed a vest, so I ordered a 511 vest, and I was standing there, the only dude with it on, and they asked, "Are there any new shooters?" So I raised my hand. I was like, "I'm new to this," and the one SO there looked at me and said, "You're really new to this?" He was like, "You got all the stuff." I was like, "I just watched YouTube and got what I needed," and it was good. It was a good match. I shot that, and then continually shot. I shot my first class fire. I think the next match ended up, I shot SSP. It's why I still shoot mostly SSP, and went right into SSP expert. And from there, kind of took off.
You jumped right into the deep end, starting out an expert. It's hard it's hard to move up from there.
It took a little bit, but worked out. So,
do you remember what was your first IDPA sanctioned match?
It was the very first Delaware State Championship, which is a phenomenal match. I shot the first 2 years. I think this year was the fourth. Mm-hmm. So I shot the first one and the second one. The first one I took first place, stock service pistol expert, I think 6th overall. And it was phenomenal. It was the coolest thing I'd ever done with a gun. So I went back. It was awesome. And I think I shot Maryland State in between those two. And I had a very not awesome match at my first Maryland State. I left a stage with, I think, 4 targets without a hole in them. So it was kind of a wake-up call. And then I shot Delaware again with my head on straight, and it worked out a lot better. So I learned some valuable lessons from the Maryland State one that I shot.
Ouch.
Yep. It happens.
It does. It does. You're speaking to somebody who shot the same non-threat 4 times at nationals. So yeah, I completely understand.
Yep. It happens to the best of us.
So, what do you remember about that experience going to your first sanction match and winning your division, first time out? What do you remember about that day? Is there anything particular about it that jumps out at you?
Not really. I remember the stages being much more intricate than the local matches. A lot, Delaware or the Bridgeville matches, they do a real good job of props and stuff like that. So it was really cool to see the level of detail that they had in some of those stages. They were really cool. They a lot of swingers, a lot of movers. So it was kind of again an eye-opening experience to shoot my first major. And they've continued to do that up there. So it's one of my favorite matches to shoot. This coming up 2019, I'll hopefully be traveling back up there to shoot it.
Very cool. So you're now, if I understand correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, you're a distinguished master in CDP, is that right?
In SSP. Yep.
SSP.
Correct.
Oh, so the website is still not right, or maybe I read it wrong.
I don't know. I don't think I've checked it since. I know they updated it recently, but it was from nationals this year. I ended up winning stock service pistol division, so it was a good experience.
Tell us about that match. I've spoken to a handful of people who shot the match and had a really good day. Was that your first nationals?
It was first nationals. It was lot different than I expected, but it was really good. The stages were real straightforward. Nothing. I don't know if you've ever been to some matches that are kind of gimmicky. There was nothing gimmicky about it. It was very straightforward shooting. It was really good. I liked it. All the targets were pneumatic, or all the moving targets were pneumatic, which was my first experience with that, which is a little bit different than, the typical steel and cable activated stuff.
Right.
With laser, the laser like trip, you cross over the laser and the target activates as you're moving, that kind of stuff. So it was good. It was a definitely new experience. They had a really cool target there that it was a swinger, but it had 3 targets that swung back and forth on a beam. And the middle target never fully exposed, just kind of, you got like 2 8-inch slots that it kind of swayed between to shoot it. So definitely challenging. I thought it was a solid match. It was very challenging, very good. And I ended up doing very well. So can't complain.
Cool. No, definitely not. Laser. I've only seen the laser activated stuff one other time. And my first sanction match back in 2013, before I moved to Texas, the North Carolina State match, and there was one stage that they used those the laser beams to activate targets, and I leaned too far into a door to shoot a target and activated a disappearing target. Didn't know it had activated, and by the time I stepped through the doorway looking for the target, I just stood there like, all right, what do I do now? What do I do now? And the target had already appeared and disappeared to my left, and I never
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
That's one thing I noticed with those down there was the figuring out the timing on them was pretty important. I took a lot of chances at nationals that I don't think I normally would have taken, but I'm a big fan of go big or go home. So they, I remember one stage the laser activator was right at a doorway, and it was a up down target, and it only appeared for maybe 2 seconds, second and a half, something like that. And then there was a target off to the right of it. So I decided to activate it, shoot the target off to the right, and come back to the up down. And really more lucky, I ended up putting 2 rounds, one in the down 0 in the head, and then one breaking the perf on the top edge of the head. So down 1 on that target. It could have been a lot worse. But it worked out. So, what else can you do? Figuring out the timing. Hindsight's 2020. I probably should not have tried to shoot that target off to the right first.
Are you the kind of guy when you get up to a stage and they say nobody has ever done this, and you have that kind of a stage like set up like that where you can shoot the activator and then wait for the disappearing target, but you have another opportunity with a paper target like you were talking about, and the SO says no one has ever tried that, or no one has tried that today? Are you one of those guys that says, here, hold my beer?
Absolutely. I shoot like that. Sink or swim. I'm either all in or all out. It's funny because there was some shooters on the squad at nationals asking, everybody's bouncing off stage plans off each other. And I remember one of the junior shooters on our squad said, do you think you have time to shoot that target on the right? And my response was, this is nationals, go big or go home. So yeah, I shot Florida State this year, and I don't remember, I placed 15th or 10th or somewhere in there. Not as well as I would have liked. And I remember watching videos of some of the other top dudes shoot it. And that's one big takeaway is that I don't think I saw any of them waiting for targets to activate. So that was a big lesson for me that activate the targets, shoot the pop or whatever activates it. And then there's usually some stuff in between that you can get done. So you're not just standing there in dead time.
Right.
That seemed to work out really well at nationals. So I will continue to shoot like that.
So talk about what it took to get from that first IDPA match, showing up as a newbie, to distinguished master in just under 4 years, right?
Yeah, I believe so. I think 2015 was at my first sanction match. So 2014, sometime I started. A lot of dry fire, till your hands bleed. And I've been lucky enough I've taught firearms full time for a couple of years now. So I've been lucky enough to put a lot of rounds through different weapons every year. I shoot a Glock 34, so it's rarely through my 34, but trigger time is trigger time. And then again, kind of switching platforms back and forth. The 34, just doing the dry fire with it. I dry fire typically 3-4 times a week for just 20, 30 minutes at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And it, clearly it pays dividends. then, just focus, when you go out I see a lot of people go out and just kind of shoot rounds, like I'm doing this, but they're not really focused on what they're doing or how they're doing it.
Right.
I'm kind of analytical in nature, I think. So I kind of pick apart, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. If I have, for example, if I go for a reload and miss it, figure out what happened that caused that to miss. And I've been pretty good about that. Do a ton of reading on all this stuff. So just really figuring out how and why everything works like it does, and to be the best you can be, I think it's important to break down your training, all that kind of stuff.
So it sounds to me like the firearms instructor side of you is what drives your practice. You structure your practice based on, I'm guessing, or from the sounds of it, the things that you need to improve on, or issues that you saw in dry fire or in a recent match.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially from matches, I shoot USPSA too, so I bounce back and forth between them, and I'm always picking out pieces of what didn't I like today, and that's going to be my dry fire, live fire regiment this week or for the next 2 weeks, whatever. Pick the stuff out that you're not very good at. We as shooters especially we like to do what we're already good at. So if I can shoot a bill drill in 2 seconds or a second and a half or whatever it is, it doesn't do me any good to go out there and keep doing that over and over again. I need to work on, maybe I missed some weekend only shots or something like that. That's the stuff that I really need to focus on to become that more well-rounded shooter, I think.
What kinds of, you talked about not liking gimmicky stages. What kinds of stages do you like when you pick up the stage brief or the stage booklet, the match booklet, before a match, and you see, different layouts and different designs? What do you look for? What do you like? What excites you? Do you like the tight shots? Do you like, lots of movement? Do you like run and gun? Do you like lots of movers? If you built a match, what do you really enjoy shooting?
That's an interesting question. I kind of like everything. I really like, as much as you hate to see them in a match because they're a pain, I like to shoot swingers, just because it's a different challenge. It's not just a static target sitting there. I like the faster, shorter courses. I like courses with a lot of movement. That's generally because I can make up some time moving pretty quickly. I don't know. I think a good match has a mixture of all of it. They have some tight shots. They have some long shots. They have some short, fast stages. As long as there's a good variety within the match, I think it's solid. What I don't like is when you get there and it's all long, tight shots or it's all short, fast stages. That's kind of, where it just gets repetitive throughout the day. So I really like, a mixture of all of it.
What now that you're in Georgia, what's your home club? Give a shout out to your home club and tell us a little about them.
I shoot IDPA at 17 South in just outside of Savannah. It's another solid club. I really like it a lot. And I shoot in St. Augustine, their IDPA club down there, which the facility down there is phenomenal. It's they run a real solid match too. So both of those clubs, 17 South is an amazing facility as well. And I shot the SandNet match down there earlier this year, which is a CCP and bug match. And their clubhouse that they have there is ridiculous. So they're, the awards banquet and everything there after the match, but it's like a cabin that you'd find in the mountain, like you'd rent a cabin or something with a full bar. They serve food and everything. So everybody's done there. You're sitting there drinking some beers and stuff. So, usually it's under a tent out back of stage 3. So it's really nice there. So yeah, I shoot at both of those.
Now you mentioned the Delaware match is one that you make a point to go to every year. What is it about that particular match that keeps you going back to it? What is there? Is it the facilities? Is it the stage design? Is it the people? What is it that about that particular match that you like so much?
The people for sure. I know most of those guys. I've known them for a couple of years now, shooting with them, and they're a great group of guys. I think they just replaced their match director with another guy up there who's phenomenal as well. And then they really do a lot of, stage design, a lot of really cool stuff up there that you don't typically see. They put a lot of time and effort into building the props for the stages and stuff. So it's just a really good environment. I've been to clubs before that doesn't have the best feel to it, I guess. And the clubs I shoot at, I generally don't like that. So the Bridgeville's, they're just welcoming. Come there, hang out. Everybody knows everybody, so it's really refreshing. Same thing at 17 South in St. Augustine.
What give us a flavor of one of your, if you can think of one of your favorite stages that you shot that you think back and you say, wow, that was a lot of fun, or that was really unusual, something that you experienced that you'd never run into before that you thought was a lot of fun.
So I shot a stage at the very first Delaware State. It was like a carnival stage, or I think that was the name of it, something like that. And you started out with a teddy bear in your hand. And I think it's been a couple of years now, but I believe you had to draw, shoot the first target, strong hand only. Then you could put the teddy bear down, and I think they had an up down that you shot while moving forward towards it. Then a pressure plate activated triple swinger kind of thing off to the right hand side. So we shot that, and then they had I know the step plate activated. They had a running target that ran straight from the left side of the bay to the right side of the bay, and I forget the speed that it was running across, but it was pretty quick, and that was a really cool target. You're about 15 yards away, so it was a really cool target shoot. And I remember down zeroing all the moving targets on that stage, so that was really cool. I think second or third stage for the day, my first major match. So, like I said, my first major, it was an eye-opening experience because you got all that kind of stuff that you don't have at local matches.
So, what is it about IDPA? You said you shoot USPSA as well, but what is it about IDPA that makes you passionate about it? That keeps you coming back? What is it that's fun that you love so much about the sport?
It's a different game than USPSA. That's why I continually shoot them both. I like it kind of slows you down a little bit, especially with the 1 point down. I almost said the new 1 second down or 1 second per point down, but I guess it's not new anymore. But it really forces you to play a different game, slow down. And I remember going into nationals this year thinking that no matter how long it takes me, I'm going to shoot as clean as I can and let the time kind of fall where it falls, which is in, stark contrast to, for example, USPSA. Right. So I like that. I like that it kind of slows you down and forces you to shoot accurately while maintaining at least some of that speed. And especially coming from a law enforcement background where you're accountable for every round you fire, I think that's an important aspect. So it's anytime you can run around with a gun and shoot stuff, and with a bunch of guys that are all into the same thing you are, they all have basically the same views, I think is a good time.
Absolutely. Sean, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really do appreciate you taking the time, and good luck in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, that's all we've got for you today. Thank you so much to our special guest for coming on the show. If you know somebody in the IDPA community who deserves some recognition, I'd love to talk to them. Send me an email at Lloyd, LLOYD, at unloadpodcast.com. Check out the show notes for today's episode and listen to past episodes at unloadpodcast.com. And if you like what you hear on the show and you'd like to support us, help keep the lights on, pay the bills, we would love your support. Visit patreon.com/unload and make a small monthly contribution to help continue what we're doing here. Tune in again next week for another edition of Unload and Show Clear.